sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silver starts now.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we are live here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening, thanks for making us part of your evening. It seems like it's been ages. Jake Stepp is joining us here. So much going on right now in just the world of sports. Baseball's back, baby. Opening day was fantastic yesterday, and it's only going to get better from here. But we got a lot to talk about. March Madness, NFL talk, wherever and however you may be watching and listening, guys. We're live all over the place. But, man, just so much. But, hey, your Guardians did the job, at least in 10 innings. And
yes, sir.
You know what? You know, the Dodgers just always know how to pull up a red carpet. Every time when opening day comes around, the reigning champions, they just never, ever cease to amaze when it comes to, you know, championship banners and all of that.
Yeah, it's insane. And, like, I know that, you know, the Reds do opening day better than anybody in the MLB. Like, the way that they rally around the city, rally around baseball and everything. And, you know, in the past, it used to be they would get the first pitch in all of baseball to throw out. And now it's not like that anymore. But the way that they gather for games, it is insane. And I love it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and, you know, talking about it, you know, and really celebrating the festivities. So opening day was yesterday, and we got a lot of great games. I mean, ultimately, you had the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Yankees. And, you know, it was classic because in the end, Yankees pull off a win, and most people were concerned because of the fact Garrett Cole is having Tommy John surgery, and that's bad news for the Yankees. It is indeed. However, this is why you went and got your starting rotation. Okay, this is why you addressed it. So in the end, you know, Yankees, they pulled off a really good one. I am curious to see how the rest of their offense really pulls out this year, but I thought that was great. The Guardians gave us a really good matchup against the Kansas City Royals, and man, did they pull off that one. Because in the end, no Josh Naylor this time around, but however, it didn't stop them. They got Kyle Manzardo, and they've got a bunch of really good guys I like. And in the end, they got a very good pitching rotation. And not to mention the bullpen is scary good. So it's going to take time for this puppy to really cook up. But this is why 162 games a year, it's a very, very long season, but it's a very fun season. And we know, you know, the truth and reality is not a lot of people will tune into Major League Baseball until you're on the tail ends of September, October. That's a fact. And we know that without any doubts. But however, everybody loves opening day. Like it is the America's national pastime type of holiday. Okay? You think of Christmas, you think of Thanksgiving, you think of like a lot of these other national holidays. And it just feels so good. Everybody could just feel so unified, go to a baseball game, and you're never disappointed. So in the end, you know, you had the Detroit Tigers and the LA Dodgers, and I thought it was great. Dodgers end up pulling out their 2024 World Series championship banner. They've got the year up. next to the other previous 7 championships. Now number 8 is now reigned up. And then here's the other thing. I thought this was fantastic, and it was classic. Okay. Everybody remembered the World Series in Game 1 against the Yankees. Okay. And the Dodgers walked it off. And how on earth would you walk it off in grand fashion? Well, you had Freddie Freeman hitting the grand slam and winning it for the Dodgers in the end of the night. But to cap that off, when you started opening day, Gibby met Freddie in the first pitch, and I thought that was just a heartfelt moment from there. You had one of the best incredible swings in 1988 in Kirk Gibson. Basically throw out the first pitch to the guy who hit the grand slam in Game 1 against the New York Yankees this past year in Freddie Freeman. Like, that cannot possibly be any more cooler and any more, historic than that. But the Dodgers come away with a win. Teoscar Hernandez comes away with a home run. Same with Tommy Edman. And then there's Shohei Ohtani always giving us a show. This is why most people don't quite understand about baseball, but the aura and the aroma of it, you got to drink it all in. That's where the springtime, because we all had to deal with the spring forward with our timing schedules, no matter where we live at. But then at the same time, it's like the weather outside is great. It's sunny and 75. And then at the same time, you got baseball going on, and it's a beautiful atmosphere. And it's only Game 1 of 162. So I thought opening day, like usual, I loved it. I love it every year. And most people that have followed me and that have watched this show, I was born in baseball first before anything else. I mean, it ran in my family's bloodline. And so to be excited for opening day is always something that is near and dear to me. But I thought it was classic. I really thought this was the classic moment, and it really showed for itself. So I wanted to shift this focus. Now, I want to direct your attention, all of your attention, for at least 5 minutes. At least for these 5 minutes. I'm guaranteeing you, Chase is probably going to roll his eyes in the 5 minutes. But just hear me out for a second. As America's honesty mind, I cannot go without saying of certain situations that are not truthfully possible. They are, okay? And that's in every sport. But I thought this was really interesting to kind of bring up. So, we talk about the NFL and we talk about, the draft processes and all the rest of it, all the predictions. So I thought this was interesting when I heard this. And I know everybody already wanted to point out, oh, it's fake news. It's fake news. Don't believe everything you see. But it didn't mean that you didn't think about it. Okay, that wasn't lingering in your head. So one of Cleveland's finest, one of the radio shows, basically leaked this out. And Journalism 101, and what Chase and I always had to remember, is that when something gets out, it's because someone wants it out. Now, just because that it was up in a radio show up in Cleveland, it may matter for only the 2 teams, the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, you do have to understand and realize when the Dallas Cowboys are talked about a lot, Jerry's always smiling because that's where a lot of the incentives come in. That we love it. It's like every time we talk about the Yankees or the Dodgers or any of the other top-tier teams, okay? So this was proposed. So here's the deal. Cleveland Browns know they need a quarterback, okay? They need a competent, productive, efficient quarterback. They know that without a doubt. And you signed Myles Garrett to an extension. You wouldn't do that without a reason. But they believe that this team could win. They believe that this team could be competitive within their division with the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Ravens. And I'll be talking about the Ravens here in a little bit. But the trade proposal was it was involving quarterback Dak Prescott. And what that was involving was corner Greg Newsome and draft picks. Now, I want you all to think about this because I've heard this everywhere. They're like, don't believe it. It's fake. They're all kind of pulling off, the Donald Trump gesture, your fake news, all that stuff. I was hearing it all over. But think about this for a second. Just give me a few minutes to break this down. You get Dak Prescott, an efficient, productive quarterback. And by the way, we know that he got paid a lot of money in the last offseason and then restructured his contract. So you know what that means? The guaranteed money is not as steep. That's a very good deal. And then at the same time, the draft picks, I'm sure, because Cleveland's got number 2, and I believe the Dallas Cowboys are sitting at 9. So the first round draft picks are probably going to be pick swaps. And the Cowboys might end up moving up to 2. Okay? And Cleveland would probably give up another first rounder for next year and maybe another draft pick at least up to this year. But think about this for a second. When was the last time the Cowboys ever pulled off a deal like this, especially with the value and the money? Think back to Herschel Walker in the Minnesota Vikings. Remember how big Herschel Walker was a name out there in Dallas? The Dallas Cowboys know that they had a really, really good running back for a long time. You also watched him in college. He was fun to watch. But the Minnesota Vikings put in a hefty trade proposal to acquire Herschel Walker. And you know what those draft picks turned into? You would only guess it. Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and a couple impactful players. And what did that translate into? Super Bowls. You also had a competent head coach in Jimmy Johnson, who's arguably one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history. So to deal away Dak Prescott to a team that knows they need a competent quarterback, and at the same time, in the Cowboys situation, their Achilles heel is that they have at least 2 offensive linemen that give them at least a chance. So you go and get draft compensation, you could go and fill in those spots. Not to mention, you're acquiring Greg Newsome, who's waiting for a contract. All right? And you have Trayvon Diggs and you have DaRon Bland. You could go get another corner, but you know what you could do with that Trayvon Diggs? And listen, I know this might freak you out, but Trayvon Diggs, truthfully, I could get value in that as well. And then I wouldn't even have to deal with the cap hit later on. I could actually get some cap space opened up. So I would trade Trayvon to a team that may be looking for a corner of his stature, because to be totally honest with you, he's somebody that is a pick machine. I think, truthfully, he plays better in the slot than I'd say against man-to-man, but you could utilize him every way that you can. But you have Newsome, who's a very good man-to-man corner. You've got DaRon Bland, who also does the same, and you could go draft another corner if you like. But then at the same time, look at the hefty amount of draft capital you'll get. Seriously, if you just did that. And you know what you do? If you're Dallas, you'd be drafting Shedeur Sanders. You're not going to get, obviously get Deion. Okay. So with Deion Sanders, he's staying put in Colorado. I'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. But he's not moving. And he made that perfectly clear. But you could get one of the Sanders. You could get Shedeur. And at the same time, what does Jerry Jones love? Loves a lot of the products of some of his Cowboy players. That's what he would do. Okay? And you have an offensive line that you can still build around with those draft picks. Because in the end, you'll need a corner, you'll need a receiver, you'll need a running back, another running back that you could pair up with the 2 that you've already signed in free agency. And you can also stack up the D line because DeMarcus Lawrence is no longer there. I'm telling you, a lot of this, it all goes around full circle very quickly before you even know it. And when everybody was like fake news, you didn't hesitate thinking about it. None of you did. Don't lie. Okay? The minute that I heard this, It all made perfect sense. And then Cleveland's side, here's the best benefit. You will be getting a quarterback. Your pick swapping in your first round pick and going down from 2 to 9. And who's available there? Defensive lineman, running back, offensive lineman. There's many options that are available. And you're not being too steep. And at the same time, you could easily walk away from this Deshaun Watson contract deal. And then at the same time, here's the other thing. If you were to honestly end up getting a second round pick, which I'm sure that that's exactly what will happen, you get a second round pick on this deal, you could potentially go and get Jackson Dart, or you could get Kyle McCord, either one of those, because you'll have a veteran quarterback for the now in Dak Prescott, and then you will have your potential future quarterback in this draft. Or if you believe Dak Prescott can hold you for at least a year, then you could go get your quarterback next year. So you got to think of the idea from this, because what did we see from Russell Wilson? What did we see from Aaron Rodgers? Okay, they may not have gone to ideal situations, but the difference between the two, the difference between Dak and those two is Dak is going to have an offensive-minded coach, so he's not regressing under any circumstance with Kevin Stefanski. And then at the same time, that offensive line is not as terrible as you think. They just need a run game. You could go get another offensive lineman later on in the draft. You could go get a D lineman because, there's plenty of them to go around. And maybe you could go sign somebody down. So that's the thing. Because the stuff that's surfacing right now is obviously Deshaun Watson and his care of his foot. That's what's surfacing the internet. That's why Cleveland has the upper hand in this. But I think it would work perfectly on both parties. I'm curious to see what Chase thinks about this, but I'm telling you, you may think this is fake news and all the rest of it, okay? Like it's not even real, but you cannot say you did not think about this. I think it would benefit on both sides. The Cowboys would be reminiscing about the time they traded away Herschel Walker, and that's what equaled Super Bowls. And it also equaled stability. For the Cleveland Browns, there's your competent quarterback. You can maybe potentially draft your future quarterback in this draft or next year's draft. But in the end, you've got important needs. And if you are trying to satisfy Myles Garrett on winning right now, how could you not take this deal? I'm sorry, but how could you not take this deal? Chase, America's honesty mind just got spicy, but I'm telling you, you cannot tell me you did not think about that and say to yourself, hey, maybe this could actually be a bargain deal on both sides.
Oh no, I did not think about it at all. I really did not, because as a Browns fan, one, no cap because of Deshaun and Myles. I mean, Deshaun is owed $89 million this year as a cap hit. If he does not play, it's only $44 million, because that $44 million of that will go back onto the cap, and then he will have a $44 million cap hit. And bringing Dak on, we can't do that. Andrew Berry is smart enough to know that we're not going to be able to afford it. Not to mention giving up the capital that that they're going to be asking for is astronomical. So Andrew would not do that there. I knew that this was not going to happen, and I knew that it was fake, because Bruce Drennan likes to talk, a lot of crap, and he likes to claim. But I will tell you one thing that I know for sure. Around draft time, every single year, teams throw out rumors and just a whole bunch of BS to see who bites, because they want to know who is leaking information in their systems. Because a couple years ago, I ended up going to schooling for, football and to try to be an NFL GM. And the one person that we had that was teaching us was a former NFL scout. And he would sit there and say that GMs and front offices do this a lot, where they make up something and they want to see who is telling somebody, so that way they can figure out who not to have in the draft room or who not to keep in the loop.
Well, of course, but here's the thing, though. It's just like I said when I started this segment, is like journalism 101. The reason stuff gets leaked out is because somebody wants it leaked out. You don't think Jerry Jones at the end of this thing, the minute that this got leaked out, he's smiling right now because, number one, when the Cowboys get talked about, there is an incentive behind that. And where do you think that incentive goes towards? Micah Parsons' contract extension. I'm telling you, this is not coincidental. And at the same time, in Dak Prescott's case, Dak restructured. So that fully guaranteed that the Browns probably would have ended up paying and would have been too steep for. They won't even have to worry about that now because the reality check from the Cowboys and with Dak Prescott was the minute that you got that high-end contract, what happened to the Cowboys? They missed the playoffs. And so both Dak and CD, they both restructured and they put a hefty amount back into the cap. So what this means is Cowboys are no longer sitting in cap hell. And for the Browns, because of, like you said, with the Deshaun Watson contract situation, if that drops down because he ain't playing, and especially with this whole thing that's viral right now on the internet, the Browns might not actually be in a terrible situation than you think. Remember, teams that usually hold on to a dead cap are often the teams that know how to rebound and bounce back, and they normally would make the playoffs. Just take, for instance, the Denver Broncos. They got rid of Russell Wilson so easily, and then who was the outlier? Bo Nix.
If they get rid of Deshaun next year, post June 1st, it's only a $28 million cap hit.
And that's where I think you got to ask yourself, because ultimately you want your quarterback for the now that's productive and that at least gives you, by and large in the AFC, 9 to 10 wins at least, because you have that defense. You got a viable offensive line. You could build around it. You just got to now figure out that running game. And so if you do that, the Browns would not even be in tip-top shape. I would say, I will go on the air and say this, that the Browns will literally make the Pittsburgh Steelers look small. Because what have I been? You were my witness when I said this, when Pittsburgh should seriously consider trading TJ Watt for those compensations. You can't tell me I ain't on to something. And the reason for that is because what is your problem? Offense. Okay.
And I've been hearing that they like Jalen Milroe a lot, and they might draft him in the first round to get that extra year.
They do. And here's the thing, though, because truthfully, if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers and you were able to climb up to that top 5 spot, you know who was available right there then and there? Abdul Carter. You will have 4 years of not paying him so that you have Peyton Wilson, you got Cam Hayward, who's probably up and on the tail end, and you got that kid Herbig. You have a defensive unit. That's never been the problem with Pittsburgh. The problem with Pittsburgh is not great amount of pass protection on their offensive line. And even with Najee Harris, which I think is going to do wonders with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, like, he had to do any and everything he possibly could, even if it didn't look pretty. So that's why I think Pittsburgh, they seriously would have to consider that. But if the Browns made this move tomorrow, I'd say the Browns would actually make the playoffs, and they would be toe-to-toe between them and Denver. I really would, because like I told you, this is my hottest take. New England would make the playoffs before Pittsburgh, and I feel Cleveland would have a viable chance to fight for that wild card spot over the Denver Broncos. I'm telling you.
Here's a hot take. Cam Ward's not going number 1 overall.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Because here's the reason why. Because the Titans have already said that they're willing to trade out of that number 1 pick. It's just going to take more. You do not come out and say that you're willing to trade that number 1 pick if you know for a fact that you want to get a quarterback of the future, which almost makes me think that they're going Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, because not only that, their GM has said, we're not going to pass on a generational talent. Nobody in this draft thinks Cam Ward's a generational talent.
Now, remember this, because when you look at the Giants, okay, and this is actually what's kind of funny about this, the Giants are literally turning into the Cleveland Browns from back then. They are, because here's the deal. You signed both Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, the 1-year contracts. Okay. Everybody's like, they're still going to take Shador. They're still going
2 years for Jameis.
Are they? Like, are they going to take a quarterback? I don't believe it.
Nope.
Because truthfully, what did Russell Wilson do so good that was efficient when they were red hot? Throw the deep ball. There's George Pickens. He went for those go routes. That was what was efficient. You know who's good for go routes? Travis Hunter. Okay. And you've got Malik Neighbors and you've got Jalen Hyatt right up from there. So I feel like Travis Hunter would be the one in play. That's why they went and signed Russell Wilson, because the other thing is they felt like Cleveland's going to take Shador. And you know what? If the Browns really do take Shador Sanders, truthfully, if that's the case, then you have the quarterback of the now and you have the quarterback of the future from there. That would have been the case, but that's why.
And then go get running back at 33.
That's what I'm saying. So think about that. Cowboys move up. They go and get Shador Sanders, right? And then here's the Browns literally sitting and waiting for more compensation to come up because all of this is shaking up and it's putting everybody out their rhythm. Everybody's watched Draft Day, right? And it's based out of Cleveland. So it's like, come on. You cannot say, you heard it from your finest, okay? You've heard it from America's Honesty Mind first, okay? You may think it's wild. I don't think it is. In fact, I've even talked to Cowboys fans, and even they agree that they should do this. But I'm telling you, I think it would work out best for both parties because, again, if you get Dak, I could see the Browns maybe potentially getting Jackson Dart or Kyle McCord in the second round because they have experiences, like they're coachable. You could teach them up the rope. Because if there's anything we've learned about Kevin O'Connell with like Sam Darnold and with J.J. McCarthy and like Kevin Stefanski's case, because he's been under the system, he could do literally the same thing. So
I wouldn't want Kyle McCord. Like, he's too reckless and too turnover prone.
We'll see. Listen, just because we see them in these versions in college football, sometimes could have a different they could have a different upbringing in the NFL. It happens all the time. So that's all I'm saying. I think it's interesting. But I do, however, want to talk about right after the break, because I think this is interesting, in my opinion, with the way that like just things are really, really shaping up for certain teams. But hold on, something's going on here. A little bit of technical difficulty, and I do not know exactly what it is that's going on.
How did your A's do on their opening day?
Well, they lost. And you know what? The minute that you gave up the home runs to Randy Arozarena and you gave it up to Jorge Polanco, that was all going downhill. But I do believe they will be an interesting team. All right, we have a little bit of technical difficulties. We're gonna take a break. And we're hopefully gonna get this all figured out. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're gonna get this fixed.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Oh, the utter madness that we had during March Madness that's still going on, and we're getting ready to be prepared for the Elite Eight. So a lot of these programs all through the Sweet 16, they've been so much fun to watch back here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. So unfortunately, John Calipari and his Arkansas Razorbacks, they were defeated by the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and they're moving on to the Elite Eight. And John Calipari is sitting back up at home. But listen, again, he came off of an emotional win against St. John's where you had Rick Pitino, okay? And when he pulled off that win, this is always what happens during March Madness, is usually when you get those emotional wins, it's hard to answer back in the next game. And Texas Tech was ready. And at the same time, I mean, it was going back and forth all the way up until Texas Tech. They got the initial points, they got the initial control, and then now they're heading into the Elite Eight. But like I told a lot of people when it came to college basketball, is how fascinating that it is that we don't even have a single Cinderella story in the middle of this. All of these teams, all of these programs are all some of your top 10 bests. And this year it's big. And again, one of these teams is based out of the SEC who could win this whole tournament. Alabama's one of them. Auburn is also another. And I think it's incredible. But, you know, I told a lot of people, like, I think Duke may potentially try, but it's hard. And look, I give a lot of props to Cooper Flagg, arguably one of the best NBA prospects going into the draft. But you kind of look at the state of college basketball. And like I told a lot of people, the NIL, and what most of you don't realize, the NIL was meant to help a lot of these players and these programs. Okay. And I'm talking a lot of the programs that we're seeing before your very eyes right now. Okay. And the thing about it is, I know we love Cinderella stories, but just like 90s hits, you are either the band who makes an entire platinum album or you are the band who's only known for the one hit wonder. Okay. When was the last time you ever heard another song from Chumbawamba? Okay. After Tub Thumping, nobody cared. Okay. Nobody was listening to their music. Okay. It's like what we see in college basketball. When you get Loyola Chicago, Wichita State, Drayton. I think the only team, though, that does have a viable chance, which I think is interesting, is Drake and even Creighton. Those two programs from there, I think, have a very good chance for the next couple of years. But I've always paid attention to Mark Few and Gonzaga. I've also paid attention to Dan Hurley at Connecticut. And ultimately, a lot of the bigger programs, they're going to be surplus by this. Now, I know the one thing you all think about, and I think about this too. Where's the balance and consistency from the NIL? it's much like I talked about in college football, is that these players get paid, and then at the same time, you think about where are they going to end up going, because there's the transfer portal, and like I told everyone, I would rather incorporate the transfer portal and all of these to be at the end of the season. So you make college football like an NFL off season. That's what I would do, because coaching changes happen all the time. Players go into the transfer portal and they transfer to other programs all the time. Okay. And you will know the difference between players who want to play for playing time and that actually want to compete in these programs, and the players that just want to get paid. And some of them too, that are really looking to up their draft stock. So it happens all the time. But at least in college basketball, this could be a good thing, because what is killing the NBA? That would be the G League. Okay. When you get the G League and then you get these international leagues as well, I don't hear nothing about any of these players. So I think the NIL is such a good thing, because I want to have at least 2 to 3 solid years of knowing the players in these programs. For instance, you get Cooper Flagg, okay? We hear a lot about Cooper Flagg these days because he's such a big hit. And I think he's arguably going to be a very impactful player in the NBA when the time is right. And, I mean, we talked about it. We followed Anthony Davis. We followed John Wall. We followed Zion. When did you ever hear a lot of players outside of Zach Edey? You didn't. You didn't hear a whole lot of them. And the problem of this is, too, the NBA doesn't truthfully have their players flourish until year 3, year 4 of their careers. If you want to attest to that, you go right ahead. But that's exactly with what I've seen in the last few years. Okay? I want to follow these kids. I want to follow them. I want to know their story. I also want to know their build, because once you are in, like, this is the thing, college football is classic for this, because I get to follow these players, because the minute that they are ready to be drafted, I have already watched their games. I have already broken down film and all of their skill sets and everything I need to know as far as perfect fits. Chase and I love it when we do that. But think about this in college basketball. I want to see some of these teams get competitive in the NBA. And it doesn't seem like there's a ton of them. I mean, you still got your Lakers. You still got your Warriors. You still got, the Celtics. So in the end, college basketball is moving at least in the right direction. But the NBA has to build this consistency. We've been talking about it several times now. And it's only up to the NBA and Adam Silver whether or not he's going to make that happen. Only time will tell. Chasing the news.
This is the Hot Press.
The Elite Eight, man, and like I said, when the tournament gets further and further and further in, it gets harder. But I'm telling you right now, like, I thought John Calipari's Arkansas team was very, very competitive. After that emotional win against Rick Pitino, that was very hard to have to get into the next round after that win. It always happens with all these programs. So Texas Tech is in. Well, I'm telling you, one of these SEC teams is going to come away as the tournament champion. One of them. So in Tennessee right now, I've already gotten an update. They're already up by a good hefty amount. So watch out for Tennessee.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. First bit of news is the rumor mill when the draft comes around is insane. Like, all of these rumors and stuff that come out and all of the things that are being said, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And the funniest one that I heard was that a guy said that he had a pretty good source saying that on draft night, the night of the draft, that the Minnesota Vikings and Los Angeles Chargers are going to have a deal put in place that sends Justin Herbert to the Vikings for J.J. McCarthy. I'm like, no, that is not going to happen.
Come on. Like, see, so that's the part I would label fake news, truthfully. Okay, because first of all, there was last year's draft, there was 2 teams that inquired about Justin Herbert. it was the Patriots and it was the Vikings. They inquired about both of them. But what I'm told, this was the actual source that I had. The Vikings want to roll with J.J. McCarthy, and they should. Because truthfully, I'm not wasting my time with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, Aaron, you already seen the news now come out. This is part of the passive-aggressive Aaron Rodgers we know. Is because once that door's closed, okay, we're moving on to the next one. And so the next one's probably going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, do you truthfully want that? So, look, draft night is always entertaining because of a lot of these hypothetical stuff that could happen. But think about it. Look at how many free agents we have still available. Look at some of these trade baits that we have right now that could potentially end up moving. Because remember, you got the tight ends. You've got Dallas Goedert. You've got Mark Andrews still available. And so there is still opportunities for those to happen. So that one, I'm going to say
It's insane what people come up with when it is draft time, and that time has
people
come
are
around.
Just really excited.
They are. Now, the next bit of piece of news is I had to actually do some research on this because I wasn't for sure. But apparently there's a lot of MLB pitchers that are putting together an investigation into the new rules and like the pitch clock and everything that has come about, because they're thinking that the pitch clock is the reason why 20% more pitchers are getting Tommy John surgery, because of the fast pace and the, strain that it has of trying to get them to the next pitch very, very quickly. And, they got a valid argument. I mean, the percentage of Tommy John surgery has happened and increased ever since the pitch clock has come into play. So that could be a possibility.
Yeah, but here's what you also got to ask yourself. Because even the managers, they know this. Why do you think we've seen most of these starting pitchers get taken out by the fifth inning? Because the pace of play is starting to get sped. But here's the thing, though. And I've heard about this even from some of the scouts. You'd be surprised with some of these scouting reports. But to me, I feel like a lot of that is forcing fastballs so much. It's not truthfully because in old school, fastballs was not even a big thing. Yes, you had the gas, but it was more about control, spin rate, velocity, and that was really what made you a great starting rotation pitcher. Okay,
yep.
That was how it rolled in there, and actually, it was a lot of fun. How many pitchers these days still throw an Ephus pitch? Zach Greinke, that's it.
Paul Skeens.
Yeah, Paul Skeens. So there are it's a very few rarity, but they're so fixated on throwing the gas. But that's why I think a lot of that, because if you think about it, it's just like the resistance of a rubber band.
I think that they just need to figure out how the throwing motion that they're throwing is affected, because you got guys who have thrown 95 to 100 mile an hour their whole career and never had Tommy John. Aroldis Chapman.
Yes, Aroldis Chapman is one of them. Hell, even if you had someone like Justin Verlander, he was still capable of throwing that 100 mile an hour pitch, but he was more fixated on velocity and control.
Yep. Okay,
so that's really what was the importance of it. And maybe that's what it is. It's because, listen, I've actually heard this back when I used to play baseball in high school. I heard of a story, okay? And there was so the Tennessee Volunteers, right? So the story of it is that all 5 of their starting rotation pitchers all threw up to 90 plus. And the only reason, the way they did that was long tosses. That was the way. And the other thing is, too, is you have those resistible bands, okay? Because it's all about trying to keep your arm warm, and it's also trying to keep the consistency of the throwing motion in itself. That's why long tosses are also so good. And why do you think some of those outfielders, specifically in right field. They have that push to throw the ball to gun some of these runners out. It's because of those long tosses. So if you incorporate that a lot more rather than just trying to force fastballs into your normal pitching, your normal pitching distance, maybe that's where they need to really incorporate that. But look, Major League Baseball is moving in the right direction. The viewership has gone up. The other thing is they're not incorporated this yet. But did you see that? Did you see those accurate balls and strikes?
Yeah.
That is a game changer. And the minute you have that, I will doctrine that before the golden at bat rule. I think it's silly. I think we're just
I think the automated balls and strike system is going to revolutionize the game of baseball and how it's played.
And at the same time, too, batters and catchers can challenge those certain pitches. And you know what? The only thing that's going to change about that is it could change a little of the morality of the game because you won't see as many umpires get into screaming matches with managers because of the accuracy of some of these pitches. The only thing they would have to worry about is the amount of distance from the foot to the base when it comes to outs or safes, and then at the same time, home run, like the home run line. Okay, did it cross it or did it just hit right off the front of it? And that's
it's mostly just about stats at this point because you're gonna have a lot more strikeouts or a lot more walks.
That's right, and so that's the thing. But at least the accuracy will nearly double, if not triple, than your normal amount that you're used to seeing every year.
Yeah. And the draft is less than 28 days away, and we are finally going to see who the number one overall pick is. But this is the first time in the common draft era since, I think, the early 2000s that all teams have had their own first-round pick of this year's draft. Are we going to see a trade before the draft or on draft night to where somebody else gets another first-round pick?
So let's think about some notables that have happened on draft. So the recent one, A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. That was huge, that draft night, because nobody saw that one coming.
Nope.
Out of Howie Roseman. And then all of a sudden, like, the Titans GM gets fired. Like, not even like a day. Like, literally hours later. Okay? Because you don't trade away your best caliber piece to anybody, including the Philadelphia Eagles. And they benefited tremendous with that. They got a Super Bowl. And I think the other one...
I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to trade either back in the first round or they're going to not have a first round pick in general because they've got a first rounder, one fourth rounder, and 2 fifth rounders. No seconds, no thirds, sixth or sevenths.
So I think, and it's funny because one of my closest sources, who I trust all the time, covers everything Minnesota. He put together a very good draft plan for the Vikings. And that's involving Kenneth Grant. Because they need a D-line. And only with the 4 picks, you got your D-lineman, you got your running back, and then at the same time, you could go get other options on top of all that because they went in on defense. And at the same time, their offensive line, they went and got Ryan Kelly and they got Will Fries. So it's ensuring J.J. McCarthy is protected off the ACL. Isn't that something that Joe Burrow wished that he had?
It was an MCL. It wasn't an ACL.
Well, still, I mean, could you imagine that? With an offensive line like that? If they had just put a little care into it. So, I've said this to many people, and I'll tell you this too. Keep your eyes on the 20, 22nd, and the 26th pick. Because those are probably the most guaranteed fiery pick spots right now that could literally make a move. Okay? And because, listen, Harbaugh and the Chargers, they're not quite done with themselves yet. Not even with free agency. They could maybe go, like I said, the rumor buzzes is they could either bring Keenan Allen back or they could probably end up getting Dallas Goedert because everything went quiet, but something is in the mix of that. And then you've got the Broncos, who they've got a very, very good shot as well, because a lot of this is they're paying attention to the tight end and the running back. So, and there's plenty of them. So this could actually be a very hefty draft night, because I don't think there's going to be many teams trading a whole lot, at least not at the day one, but somewhere in the middle of that phase. They probably will get maybe one or two. But I don't know. Like I said, I told you this before. It could be a big namer like I just put out in the very first segment of the show, or it could be something else that's like an under radar type of trade. And you know what? It'll work out perfectly, because in the end, you've addressed the need, you've addressed the position. Now the other team could basically go and get their one for the future, because they already have somebody that's already there that will help them. That's why I told people, I was like, Mark Andrews is not going to stay in Baltimore, because all you're doing is stunning Isaiah Likely's growth. And you can get another tight end in the draft if you'd like. There's plenty of them. So,
now the last bit of news I got, it's something that has been a pet peeve to you and me and then possibly a lot of others. The Colorado Rockies owner has put forth a proposal to have the MLB have a salary cap put in place.
No. You know, it's funny. It's funny you brought that up, because I did see this on the corner of my eye scrolling on this before we started the show. You know, he basically said, he was talking about, the top 5 markets, right? And then there was like the mid-tier, and then there was the bottom 20. He said, I just wish like somebody asked him a question as far as the parity and the competitiveness in Major League Baseball. And he answered it like this: I just wish that it wasn't so hard. How? If the Dodgers are getting away with the deferred comp money, what makes you think that you can't either? Well, don't you want to go down the street to Ball Arena, literally right there up in downtown Denver, and ask the Colorado Avalanche how it's done? I mean, good God. McFarland was an absolute genius when he ended up making a lot of those trades away, because, one, you did not sacrifice all the high top money to Mikko Rantanen, and now he's got that in Dallas, which worked out just fine. And then at the same time, you got Brock Nelson, you got Ryan Lindgren, you got a bunch of very good impactful players. Hell, Martin Mitchell is insane. That's why I'm like,
the Waltons to buy the Rockies.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, come on, man. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And like I said, look, I'm going to be going to a few Rockies games. If I got to say that to the owner myself, I'm just like, you know why you're saying that is because you want to benefit more for your family trust. That's really why you want the salary cap. But it doesn't do you any good. I've been saying this for several times, is because the minute that you instill a salary cap in Major League Baseball, there's your strike. Okay, there's your strike again. And now you're going to have to figure out how to unionize this and all the rest of it. You're not the NFL. Hell, you're actually in a better position than the NBA. I mean, how many of those max deals do teams get trapped if they don't even fulfill? I mean, Ben Simmons and the Sixers ring a bell? Like, come on. Like, this is ridiculous. And at the same time,
I think so too.
Oh, and by the way, like I told everybody, I've told you this before. Of the last 20 years, okay, there was only 6 teams that won the World Series who had the best win-loss record in the league. 6 of 20 years. Baseball is a mental, it's a mental chess game, because that's initially what it is. Hell, you may think the Dodgers could go back-to-back when, hell, it could be the Cleveland Guardians winning the World Series. It could be, the Padres winning their first World Series. You do not know. You can't predict the future. That's what's so fun about Major League Baseball.
It could be the Seattle Mariners winning their first one.
Exactly. So I don't understand this. Why would you want to even implement this? You want the entire league to go on strike and then unionize this thing? Give me a break.
Baseball is built through the farm systems and a little bit of free agency. It is not built solely on free agency.
It's also built upon who is going to be aggressive no matter what the spending limit is. Because here's the thing. You know what's funny? Maybe they should learn a thing or two from the Cincinnati Bengals about spending the money now. Because here's the thing. You do have the money. And like I told, like we've talked about this before. The Bengals, the problem with that is they were spending so much of their own personal money that they weren't even digging into the pockets of their shareholders. That's how they were able to re-sign T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And now they're already saying that, hey, Trey Hendrickson is off the table. We're going to re-sign him too. So it's like, come on. There's money to be found. We're in the month of March, damn it. Like, we're all little leprechauns out there trying to find our pots of gold. It's there.
Yep.
So come on, man. Give me a break. I don't understand this. And then you wonder why the Rockies never get competitive. It's such a hitter-friendly ballpark, but they do not like to compete. It doesn't make any sense.
That's why the Waltons need to buy the Rockies as well.
Oh, for real. I mean, if we're going to have X amount of Walmarts all around the state of Colorado, come on, you can afford the Rockies.
Hey, they bought the Broncos. Go buy the Rockies.
Exactly, and do all of us here in the state of Colorado favor, okay? Because I would love to watch postseason baseball. I really would. October back, in Denver, that was a fun time. But I'd love to see that again. But I don't know.
Yep.
Chase with the news.
This is the hot press.
I think the audience really loves it when we get fired up for some of these certain topics and news stories like this, because it's just you just have to critically think very, very hard in your head.
Oh yeah.
And think about how any of this even makes any sense, or even how that's possible. So I was thinking about this. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that's 4th seed in the West, they just fired the coach.
And the team that won the NBA championship 2 years ago.
With 9 games left. What? The only time we've ever seen a coach literally go into the ring with a hefty team that that you could not afford to lose was it was the Lakers, Magic and Kareem. Okay? Because the coach sustained a hard injury, had to get at least, rehab, but then you had the assistant coach come in, okay, and he's overwhelmed. All right? He's overwhelmed because you got a rookie sensation in Magic Johnson, and then you also have Kareem, and you've got a bunch of these other impactful players, and then they went on and won a title. Okay, that's unheard of. The Memphis Grizzlies, I don't know what it is that they're doing. But if you truthfully think that you're going to get a coach in here with 9 games left of the season before you go into the playoffs, and you're a 4 seed, what are you doing?
This is just like Mike Vrabel.
You know what it is? It's almost like it's short. It's a lot shorter than this, but it's like because when I was out in Vegas on vacation, I watched the Bucks play the Golden State Warriors, and the Warriors beat the Bucks without Steph Curry. Okay, it's like I told everybody. It was like the time when the Bucks fired Adrian Griffin when they were the 2nd seed in the East, and they were doing just fine. They were red hot, but then all of a sudden, it did not satisfy Giannis. Okay, and Giannis is not getting any younger either. And now that you've got Doc Rivers up over there, and Dame's now hurt with a blood clot on his leg, you don't even know how he's going to perform in the playoffs. But Giannis is not getting any younger. There is a lot of wear and tear on those tires. And like I said, if he goes to I think Giannis is out of Milwaukee after this year. Because if you truthfully think Giannis is going to sit here and last with all of this just inconsistency out of Milwaukee, you're wrong. He ain't sitting for that. He's probably going to end up going to, I don't know, maybe a Golden State or maybe the Clippers, one of those teams. Okay. It'll probably get you more seats filled with the ticket prices. And then at the same time, can the team actually gel? So I don't understand what Memphis is doing. Okay. And I get it. There was because here's the thing. And I think a lot of us, we were even talking about this, but even a good friend of mine talked about this early on. And he's a diehard Sixer fan, and he covers the Sixers, okay? And he's like, this cannot just happen out of the blue without something truthfully internally happening. And whether you're looking at a few people in here, you either are looking at John Morant, you are looking at the ownership. Somebody had to have had something happen internally that made a move like this, because nobody makes a move with 9 games left, and you're a 4th seed and you're about to go into the playoffs. You know what you are? Early exit, and that's an embarrassing, sinking feeling right there for Memphis.
Yep.
And he's not even that terrible of a coach. Like, what are we doing? You know that coach is obviously going to have a job tomorrow. Okay, if you could take the Grizzlies to a 4th seed, imagine what he could do about, I don't know, maybe
the Pistons.
The Pistons. Maybe you could revive the Chicago Bulls out from the dead. Maybe you can do all those. So every single one of them. This is why it's just so weird. This was the weirdest NBA season this year, because I get it. It started it off where you had LeBron and Bronny, and it was a very touching moment. But then I got Luka to the Lakers, and I got a coach fired with 9 games left. What the hell is going on in the NBA? I don't understand it.
It's all over the place.
It really, really is. And like I said, I think because now with the NIL in college and it benefiting college basketball, you're going to see many of these players be encouraged to stay in college, because not only the NIL, but this is a mess in the NBA.
It ain't no wonder why the NBA is the fourth lowest of the 4 major sports in terms of viewership.
Oh, man. And you know what's funny about this is we were in a position where nobody was talking about hockey. Now people were already talking about the 4 Nations tournament, and they can't even wait for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Okay? And Major League, like, say what you will about Rob Manfred, but at least Major League Baseball is getting more and more interesting. They are winning a lot of those viewerships. So, because stars are in the right places, you got the pitch clocks, the ghost runner at second. You got like all these things that are meant to fasten the game just a slight bit, especially if you're watching a game on a Tuesday night. Okay, because we all got work in the morning. So you have at least that. They're doing it right. The only thing that Major League Baseball should not even flirt with is the salary cap and the golden at-bat rule. That is it. Do not destroy the product, okay?
Yep, I agree.
Don't get caught in the lights. I know everybody freaks out, because think about it. How do you think we feel when we win the lottery? We often get into our own heads. We don't even think rationally. I don't care what age you are. You could either be younger than me, or you could literally be like in your 70s and you win the lottery, and the first thing you're doing is you're celebrating. You're not even thinking about, oh, maybe I should put at least like 3/4 of this money into like a Charles Schwab and really build my business. You're not thinking any of that. Like, come on, man. Like, and that's why I'm like, the viewership in Major League Baseball is going up. They ain't thinking about, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't even incorporate or doctrine this whole rule. Like, come on. Once you're caught in the lights, because once the numbers are going up, I mean, hell, why do you think people tune into the show? We have to keep our composure, because of course the viewership's going to go up, because many people around the nation are tuning in. They want to know. So Yeah. I don't understand this at all. And the NBA, they have got to clean up this mess. But, I mean, I don't think this March Madness tournament was terrible at all. Many people could say what they want to about it, but it's like I said, I like Cinderella stories. I just don't love them enough to like literally be that guy, the 1%er out there with my sign up there and say, let everyone play. Like,
Right.
really? Amongst Tennessees and your Kansas and your Kentuckys? Hell, even if you're John Calipari at Arkansas. Like, come on, man. All these big-time programs, Duke, North Carolina. Give me a break. I would rather want to see the best teams win. Okay? You're lucky. Look, even when we watched the college football playoff this past season, okay, it was fun. It was an experiment. Now, just imagine if you tweaked it a bit where it's the top 4 best teams, not this conference bid. Those that win their conferences and that are worthy of making it into the 12 should be the ones that start right there from the bottom tier and work their way to the best of the best. That's how I feel like you build consistency right there. Because how could Arizona State and Boise State have a conference bid and be top 4 amongst Ohio State, Notre Dame, and and Penn State? It doesn't make any sense. Because those would arguably be the best of the best college football programs. They have been for 20 years. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I'm like, it's an invitation to the gala, okay? You shouldn't even be allowed to be drinking the top shelf wine up there unless you actually unless you build a very strong relationship with somebody who's a CEO at a tech company. Okay, that's mostly your Bamas. That's your Georgias. That's your Ohio State. Okay, that's the only time that you would. I'm telling you, man. I love how like sports really is like evolving in certain ways, but then you start to see a lot of these old heads not get used to this.
Yep.
They're not. And even for some of our youngsters, even we have to get them in line because we want to incorporate a lot of these things, but we don't want to get too crazy and out of our mind. So, yeah. Major League Baseball was I'm so glad baseball's back. I really am. It's the best time of year. Springtime, into the dog days of summer. You get it all. I do, however, I probably would throw out one other proposal is shorten the season to maybe like 100 games. Truthfully, you can make it 50-50 or 60-40, however you will. I don't care. But it's like you got enough to where you keep the health consistent even with your pitching rotation because that's important, right? What did we learn from the Dodgers last year? A lot of their rotational guys were hurt, so they had to utilize the bullpen in the best ways, and they won the World Series. Now they've got a stacked rotation. You had to learn that way. So it's just going to get better and better, but I think the pace of play of the league would actually be a lot better if you shortened up the season like that. And, you look at the NBA, the NBA's problem is like even with the G League, but this load management has really gone ridiculous. Now, again, I thought the best move that they could do was to penalize the players when they didn't play an X amount of games because then they wouldn't be eligible for like MVP talks. I thought it was smart because, you shouldn't even be eligible for that if you're just sitting out majority of the time.
Yep. Or make it to where like you get incentives if you play more in the game or in throughout the year.
That's right. So
you get a $10,000 bonus for every game that you finish.
Well, then at that point, throw me in, coach. Oh man, good stuff today. Good week as well. Like I said, it was a much needed vacation at the end of the day. Watched a few games, caught up with family and friends, so it was good to at least be back on the show. But yeah, so much going on. March Madness still continuing on.
Draft happening soon.
Oh, boy, doesn't our partners at BetUS, man, don't we have it good? Because at least we get prepared for that. Who's going number 1 overall? That's the biggest prop bet right now. And then even, Major League Baseball, who is hoisting the trophy?
They got a plus 20 or plus 2,000 for if you get the number one pick right.
Telling you, man, now that's money in the bank right there.
Yeah,
2,000. I love
it was the other day. I don't know if it dropped and everything, but like they had Travis Hunter's odds at like plus 2,000. They had Shedeur Sanders odds for the number one at like plus 2,100, and I think that like it was plus 140 for Cam Ward.
Wow. So at any point in time, I mean, it could definitely change. That's exciting. I think I might actually look into that. That looks like it's a lot of fun. But, as always, and with another week on our belt, Jason and myself, have a great rest of your week and the weekend, and we will see you guys next week on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone, and stay safe out there.